You've probably seen it before, the red and white mushroom that shows up in fairy tales, Christmas imagery, and even video games like Mario. But what if I told you that same mushroom, Amanita muscaria, isn't just myth or folklore, it's now a carefully studied, legally available extract that could change how we think about functional mushrooms altogether. Welcome back to the Psychedelic Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Austin, and today I'm joined by Jeff Stevens and David Shisel, the co-founders of Psyched Wellness, the first company in North America to bring a standardized Amanita muscaria extract to market. Now, Jeff has been on the podcast before, so we brought in David, the COO, to talk a little bit more about what Psyched Wellness is doing, because they've spent years researching this ancient mushroom, working with scientists, navigating Health Canada's approval process, and building a business that puts education and safety before hype. And so in this episode, we talk about what makes Amanita muscaria so unique compared to psilocybin, the science between its active compounds, and what it takes from a business perspective to bring a misunderstood medicine into the mainstream. I think one of my favorite parts of this episode is talking about how they source their Amanita muscaria, which is not going to be what you expect. All right, before we get into it, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Did you know that over 4 million people microdose psychedelics last year in the United States, and yet so few have real guidance on how to do it safely and effectively? That's exactly why I created our microdosing practitioner certification. This is an 18-week professional training where you'll master my San Pedro microdosing protocol for nervous system regulation, learning how to coach clients through it with confidence and integrity. Just visit psychedeliccoaching.institute or use the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, that's it for now. Let's get into my conversation with Jeff and David from Psyched Wellness. Hey folks, welcome back to the Psychedelic Podcast. Today we have Jeff Stevens back on the show. Jeff is the CEO and director of Psyched Wellness. Jeff is a 20-plus year capital markets operator who's taken multiple companies public and led M&A across regulated industries. He is now leading Psyched Wellness in commercializing its proprietary Amanita muscaria extract, AME1. And we also have David Shisel on. David is the co-founder and COO of Psyched Wellness, and he is a veteran of highly regulated spaces, including Canadian medical cannabis, with GMP manufacturing, product development, and pharma ops chops. And David oversees Psyched's supply chain and scale up. So Jeff, it's great to have you back. And David, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
So where I'd love to start when we have two folks on the podcast is to hear a little bit about how you two know each other. So David, I'll hand it over to you. How is it that you and Jeff met initially? And tell us a little bit about the origin story of your relationship.
Sure, yeah. I mean, to be honest, Jeff and I started working with on the company, and I think it was 2019, somewhere in 2019. And we started the company, and we didn't meet for the first 2 years. Reminding you, there was COVID at the beginning of 2020. There was no conferences. There was no flying. You didn't leave your family. And we just started this company remotely. And we finally met, I think it was Wonderland, Jeff, right? In Miami?
Yeah.
One of the, right? Yeah. That was the first time. And that's it. It was love at first sight. Since then, it's been a great journey. I love Jeff. He's my brother, and we're having a lot of fun and interesting time together developing this company.
It's beautiful. So Jeff, I wanna hand it over to you and just hear a little bit of the update since we spoke last. So we did our initial interview, which folks can find on YouTube or on the podcast. We talked a lot about the launch of Calm, which was your initial product through Psyched Wellness, the Amanita muscaria extract. What's been going on since that? What give us sort of the 411 in the last 2.5 years for Psyched Wellness and maybe awareness around Amanita in general?
For sure. Well, I can split that with David, but we're still alive. So that's the big update. You know, if you look at the industry as a whole and you look at sort of when we last spoke to where we are now, there's not many psychedelic companies or companies that focused in that sector that are still, alive, publicly traded, selling products. So we're very proud to be standing and to have our product in the market. As David mentioned, we worked the first 2 years virtually. Since then, we've been working hard as a team to ensure that we can continue to offer our product to our consumers that those who have used it have come to rely on for their daily routine. So We had some challenges when it came to manufacturing. We had some challenges when it came to the Amanita itself, specifically how it's viewed, and some entrants that have come into the market and sort of making things the waters a little murky. Through that, we managed to keep cool heads, keep control of our treasury, and ensure that we could continue moving forward. We took an investment from a private equity group called Gotham Green Partners, which was incredible. We did it at a time when most people were shutting their doors, and we were able to attract $7.5 million US from this group. They took a 49% stake in the company. This was their first investment outside of cannabis, and really the reason they did it, Paul, was recognizing that AME-1, our proprietary extract, it interacts with your GABA, and I think they did a lot of investments in cannabis, and one of the things they recognized that didn't work socially was when people use the cannabis product, whether it be a drink or an edible or consumed it vaping or smoking, they had a different experience socially than their peer group who were drinking alcohol. And the fact that we interact with the GABA receptor provides a more similar effect when it's used in that sort of social setting. And for them, that was sort of what they felt was sort of the key to moving forward and being able to build products. So since that time, we've been working with them closely. David's been doing a great job working with their consultants that they brought in to work with us to help build our new product and ensure that we can continue to offer Calm as our flagship product to our consumers that, as I said, have used it as sort of a daily routine, and it's been really good to work on. David, anything you'd add there, bud?
Well, and David, the follow up from Jeff's response is going to be around the murky water point in particular, because you had talked about this prior to us going live as well, that in the last few years now, we've seen more and more products come out, particularly in the underground in the United States, where these, let's say, chocolate bars that are supposedly, mushroom chocolate bars will be passed off as psilocybin, but maybe they'll have Amanita or they'll have Amanita mixed with other psychedelics.
Synthetic DMD and whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of give us the overview there. What in particular is going on where, the waters are becoming murky, and what is Psyched Wellness doing to make it very clear that it stands behind its product and that, AME-1 is a really sort of great solution at this point in time? After a decade of professional experience in the psychedelic space, I've learned that direct experience with these medicines is essential. And that's why our practitioner certification program includes something rare, a week-long immersive intensive at Brave Earth, a regenerative community and healing arts center in the lush jungles of Costa Rica. This is more than an online certification. It's a comprehensive learning journey that combines psilocybin experiences, daily yoga and meditation, a temescal ceremony, in-person coaching, and hands-on leadership development, all set against the backdrop of volcanic hot springs and cloud forests. The intensive is fully included in your tuition as part of our 6-month program that fuses cutting-edge psychedelic education with practical coaching skills. You'll learn directly from me, our world-class faculty, and other leaders who are shaping the future of psychedelic practice. Join a global community of coaches at the leading edge of this third wave of psychedelics and walk away with the confidence, clarity, and credibility to guide others safely and effectively. If you're ready to elevate your practice, learn more, and apply for our next cohort at psychedeliccoaching.institute. Again, that's psychedeliccoaching.institute, or check the link in the description.
I wish I had Jeff's words, is very like the beautiful way of murky water. I'm just diving into those murky water and because there's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot. When we started, there was none. I remember in 2019 bringing the Amanita muscaria idea and talking with different entities, consultants. People were like, what is Amanita muscaria? Like nobody was working with it. And since then, you see more and more players, like you're saying, mostly in the underground, mostly small-time players who, in their sense, Amanita muscaria is an unregulated mushroom, so let's just put Amanita on the label, and some of them will hide behind the Amanita label illegal compounds, synthetic DMT, synthetic psilocybin. We saw a lot of things that danger and put people at risk. Some will not even hide. Even just like diving a little bit, just for a few seconds into the Amanita, when the Amanita is raw, it has a lot of ibotenic acid. It's a substance that it's a bit of, it causes spasms in the stomach. It's a toxin. So when you dry the mushroom, some of the ibotenic acid converts itself into muscimol, but not all of it. And many of those products, even if they don't hide behind the Amanita label other illegal drugs, even them, they just dry the caps, grind it, put it in chocolate bars or whatever products you mentioned. That's irresponsible. And these irresponsible acts, at the end of the day, you are selling a product for our consumption. Human beings will take it. And our company since day one, and I can tell you that neither Jeff or I would be in this company and do this company if it wasn't the priority is do good. We're trying to provide something to the world that is natural and that can help your well-being. And to do so, there's a lot of responsibility behind that. So those small players, underground or not underground, most of them and many that I have checked, we're sending it to third-party labs. We're trying to see what it is in their products. There's a lot of irresponsible acts, and some of them were in the news, and some of them ignited the whole Amanita muscaria discussion in the past year. And the way that we operate since day one is we are surrounded by consultants, scientific consultants, legal consultants to understand how to do the process in the safest, in a way that we offer to the people a product that they can consume in a safe way, and they can get the effects in a way that will not have the irresponsible acts that others are doing. So we're doing it by the way we source our mushrooms, the places we source them, the fact that we are third-party lab is testing the raw material before we even purchase it. And once we do, our extraction process that we've worked long and hard on and creates the AME1. And on the AME1, we've done toxicology, preclinical studies, 14-day, 90-day, neurobehavior studies. We are checking the interaction of the AME1 with different... I can talk so much about tens of thousands of pages of scientific research that we've done. At the end of the day, it's over $10 million and a few years of scientific research to come to the decision that what we have in our hands is something that we can offer the people that will do good, that will not harm them. And we are constantly auditing ourselves with third-party consultants, labs, scientific research facilities. We're constantly doing third-party lab testing with new labs all the time to make sure that what we have is what the other ones are telling us that we have. We're working in GMP manufacturing facilities under GMP regulations. And there's so many factors in the process that we're doing that is very expensive. And I understand why the smaller players and underground players cannot do and are not doing. But it's super important, and we will never, offer a product to people that we don't do the safety studies on, and we don't have the certainty.
Well, and what this is reminding me of a little bit is, in the last few months, we've seen quite a bit of news and media about the banning of 7-OH, which is a very potent alkaloid in kratom in particular, and it's because it's being abused and overused and it's unregulated and folks aren't really educated about it. And a friend of mine is Justin Wolf, who runs New Brew, and he's saying, look, the full kratom products, right, are not nearly as potentially harmful as these 7-OH products. And it kind of reminds me, it's a little bit of a different lens with Amanita, but it reminds me of a similar thing where you're having these sort of unprocessed Amanita products, which, as you both know and some of our listeners know, unprocessed Amanita can cause a lot of problems. And consumers don't really know the difference between unprocessed and an extract that actually is safe and effective and useful, like AME1, as an example.
Detoxified, yeah?
Right. Exactly. Detoxified. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, right?
I would just add, Paul, further to what David was saying is, when the consumer is looking for an Amanita derived product. It's hard to understand, because some of these websites all look legit and they look like you're getting a product that's gone through the similar type of steps that we've gone through. And I think that's the challenge that the consumer feels right now, because it's hard to understand where you can go and get something that's been tested and with Psyched Wellness, as David said, through all those testings, the lab testing that we do and the third party testing, like we have a consistent product. So each time you use our product, you're going to feel the same similar effect with the same similar dose or serving size. And I think that's key when you're looking at these. We've done a lot of work over the 5 years we've been doing this. We've bought product online, we've tried stuff, we've looked at it, and each time it's like, hey, this is not for human consumption, but DM me for instructions, and
Right.
start here and then work your way up, because there's no consistency in it, and that just goes to what David was saying, where they'll order these mushrooms from who knows where in Europe. They'll dry them, crush them, and create a capsule or a chocolate, and they don't really have any idea what each one is going to do each time you use it. So when you're looking at bringing a product to market at the level that we've done, the key thing was ensuring that you've got your standard operating procedures, you've got consistently through this, you've got testing throughout, so the consumer knows each time that they order a product from us, they're going to have the similar effect. It's gone through the rigorous testing, and they're going to be, enjoy it versus, oh my gosh, could I end up in the hospital? And that's a sad reality of what's happening with some of these other actors.
So, Jeff, I want to stay focused on you for a minute because I'm curious. I have a question here in my notes about how do you sort of frame AME1 to, retailers or regulators or even the general public without leaning on the folk history necessarily, or even the Sleep 101 talking points? Like, what are some of the ways that you communicate the value of this Amanita extract that go beyond just Sleep 101 or, the Santa Claus story, so
Yeah.
to say?
Well, listen, I think you do both, really, right? So you don't ignore the folklore of it, because that's history, and that happens over the course of time, and you have to improve upon that. And I think that's what we've done by doing these scientific studies. But you don't just throw it out and say that's folklore, because those anecdotal experiences are what allow you to bring something forward typically, and so that's allowed us to sort of take that as a foundation and then build on it. And as David said, working with our team of scientists and our third party labs that we've worked with to get there. Paul, with respects to the regulatory environment, obviously things have changed in the last 5 years. When we started, people didn't even know what Amanita was. We would go, to some conferences and talk, and everyone else was talking psilocybin or ketamine, and what are you guys talking about? What is this? Since then, there's been a, a number of people have come forward because they see an opportunity. It's an unscheduled, it was never scheduled as a drug, so they're able to work with it. And what we've done always is the science first. As David said, we spent the money. So if you notice, we just had a press release out recently. It was a corporate update talking about new product, some of our patents, but also an update on what we're doing regulatory wise. We voluntarily submitted a new dietary ingredient notification to the FDA. And we initially, when we started the process, we're going to go that route. And then the Supreme Court ruled in favor of generally regarded as safe, the GRAS path to market for supplements. So at that time, our advisors said, hey, you can go to market quick, you can start selling, and then eventually look at doing a new dietary ingredient down the road. So that's what we've done. We submitted that. David, was that in July or August? I can't recall.
July 15th.
Yeah, on July 15th, we submitted that. We received back from the FDA that they reviewed it. They objected to some of our findings. So we sort of live in the world now, as a lot of dietary supplements will, where we've done all the responsibilities that we're required to do to market our product. And now, sort of as CBD or kratom, kind of live, it would be up to the FDA to challenge that
Or
science
melatonin as
or
well.
melatonin, for example. Yeah. So, it's kind of a path to market that exists. We've done everything as a responsible corporate citizen. We voluntarily did this. It was our opinion with our legal advisors that we were in a position that we did not need to, but we felt we wanted to be the good corporate citizen. We wanted transparency. We wanted consumers to know that we're not hiding behind something, and here it is. So, it's a moving goalpost, as you can imagine, with all of these, and we do our best to make sure that when we are, communicating with the public, that they have the ability to understand that we're doing everything properly and we're moving everything forward responsibly.
I just want to touch on Jeff's first part of the answer about the history of this mushroom. It's not that we like it's amazing. It's like it's something to be proud of. This is a medicinal, powerful mushroom that's been used for thousands of years. There's a long list of history of use of detoxified Amanita muscaria mushrooms that were used and are used in different parts of the world, and has great values. And it's not a coincidence why it's our emoji or Super Mario mushroom or Alice in Wonderland or the Vikings used to eat it. Like we can talk hours and bring all those beautiful examples. There's a reason for it. And I remember when we started it felt like a mission. Like there's a powerful medicinal mushroom that's been on for thousands of years that we all know, and for some reason we don't, in the Western society, we don't really use it. So saw that as a mission to bring this detoxified mushroom, this version that people have been using for thousands of years, to modern society in a safe and responsible way. So yeah, I love the history. For me, it's like it's something that ignited the entire thing back in 2019.
And we'll talk about this a little bit later on in the episode, but
Sure.
when we did our initial episode, Jeff, a couple of years ago, you had the Calm product, which is really for kind of, it's an anxiolytic and it helps with sleep and whatnot. But you've also recently come out with this awesome Santa product, which we'll drop a link to, which is basically a social drink, which when we were talking before, I think was born out of this sort of rum and coke idea that you had with your son while at a hockey game. And you're like, why drink rum when we can just have Amanita, which is way less toxic and
Calm. It was Calm and Coke.
Calm and Coke, right? Which was much more social, which is super fun.
Yeah, and it kind of leans into the whole folklore as well, right? So yeah,
the design was really cool. I love the bottle that came, and it was
that's
something
great.
I
Yeah,
really
we're
enjoyed.
very proud of it for sure. The team that we've been working with on this have done a fantastic job, and it's exciting to be able to bring some new product to market, and I think in a category where people are looking for an alternative for their daily routines, and I think this is going to land well.
Well, and one thing I want to talk a little bit more about is some of the scientific research you've done, because we've, talked at length on this podcast, and all of our listeners have heard at length about the research on the classic psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, ayahuasca, DMT, whatever it is. But there really hasn't been much amplification around some of the scientific research specific to Amanita. So I'd love if you could just, whether it's David or Jeff, just tell us a little bit more about what are some of the questions that you've been asking, some of the things that you've been exploring through a research lens already, and maybe what is it that you can want to continue to better understand about Amanita from a research lens going forward.
Yeah, I can jump on that. I the last question that you just asked is so hard, because for me there are so many things in this mushroom, in other mushrooms, in any plant, that we have no idea what it is. We know what we know, but we don't know much more than we do know. So much to explore and to understand, and it's just the beginning of it. We do know that muscimol, the active compound in the Amanita muscaria, is a GABA-A receptor agonist. That is something that is similar to alcohol in the way that it reacts to that part of our brain, and it calms us down. It helps us, forget about the worries, about the anxiousness of our life. I forgot to send my email. I don't have money. I feel like quiet down. And you can now either, like you said, with Calm is to quiet down and go to sleep. With Santa, it's formulated with other things that gives you also, this energy, focus for 4 or 5 hours with this lightheaded and fun. Like, we're very excited about that. But there's so much more to explore. Professor David Nutt is on our board, and he's fascinated with the link between Amanita muscaria or muscimol with sleep. And there's so much other more things that we can explore. At the end of the day, our company is focused in bringing to the public dietary supplements from this incredible mushroom in a safe way and different formulations for different times of the day. Um, and that's our focus. But having if this was a research company on the Amanita, and that's where the strategy goes, is I would bring so many questions into it. And it by the way, and it will all be, not all, but many of those questions, of these research questions, will come from the history, from the folklore. Like, there's thousands of years of use. Let's look at it. Let's understand it. Let's research it with today's tools.
What we have also, Paul, which is great, because we've been selling Calm for what, 2.5, 3 years now. We had the benefit of the anecdotal experience from our consumers, not just ourselves, right? And so you start to see that we have monthly subscribers, as I said, who rely on this as part of their daily routine, using it through the day and the evening, depending where they need it. They supplement their life with it, and we start to hear very similar themes when people use it regularly. Myself, for example, I really noticed the anti-inflammatory quality of this when I used it consistently. And it's really interesting, because everybody's going to interact with it differently, because everyone is made up differently. And so, you give a range on saying, hey, we recommend with Calm, you start with 1 to 2 milliliters, but some people will use 4 and some people will use half a mil, because it's how their body interacts with it. But if you're in tune to it and you're listening to it, it's really special, and you can feel multiple effects with this. And there's some people who are, I'm not the most spiritual type of person. David leans on that more than I do. But this journey with David has opened up a side of sort of that to me, where I'm in tune, listening to my body, listening to it, and there's some people who say, like, the muscimol will go to the parts of your body that need it. And so if you've got inflammation, it'll go there. And if you've got anxiety and anxiousness, it'll go over there. I don't know that I believe in the path of it going sort of where it needs to go in that respect, but it's really fun to hear people talk about how it's benefited them and how they use it. And for us, I think, as David said, we started off with, hey, can we do something to do good for humanity and help people? And when you get that feedback from your consumers, it's like, check, we've done it, we're doing it, let's do more.
Well, and this is what we're seeing with some of the classic psychedelics as well. Like, I just saw an article published last week about the anti-inflammatory potential of psychedelics. So could they replace steroids, at some point? Or, I saw another article about how NN-DMT, when used right after a stroke, can potentially prevent a lot of damage from strokes. Or, we've started to see research in ayahuasca for gut health, right? It seems to be that these medicines, because I would go so far, I know you can't say that, but I'll say it, that these medicines, these ancient medicines, they don't fit within the sort of paradigm that we have in Western healthcare, which is you have an isolated thing, you want a drug that addresses that isolated thing, and it really doesn't have much else of an impact, right? Like, I think what we're seeing with Amanita and what we're seeing with some of these other psychedelics is it addresses some of the core mechanisms of what are going on, and so it has multivariate benefits. Number one, which could be sleep quality, because David, as you were talking about sleep, and knowing your background in cannabis as well, I know there are a lot of people who rely on cannabis for sleep, and while it can help in the short term, it's also been my experience, and I know there's more and more research about this as well, that it can sometimes mess up sleep architecture in the mid to long term, and so it feels like Amanita may be, for many, a better alternative to help with overall sleep quality.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between pharmaceutical drug and a dietary supplement, right? It's the claim. So
Right.
it may help with sleep. But for sure. And yeah, I do come from the cannabis, and cannabis went through a very similar, I wouldn't say very similar, but it went through a legal process that started with science. It started with scientific research showing that this could be a solution. And just going back to what I said before, also with cannabis, and cannabis is well more explored from Amanita muscaria. We know, I don't know, 400 and what cannabinoids, I don't even know the number, but we don't know more than we do know. So maybe that's the spiritual part of me, but yes, I believe that things that are coming from nature, and when we take the full spectrum of it, and unlike pharma, isolate this and isolate that in the lab and bring something that is, like when we take the full spectrum of the plant, there's so many things that we don't know, but it does affect every person a bit differently, and even myself, for everybody that will take it in different time frames and with other things that he took, and how much sleep did he like so many questions, it will always affect you differently. And that is an amazing strength that nature has and mushrooms have, and Amanita definitely falls within that.
Well, they seem to have this like adaptogenic quality to them, because even as, I'm reflecting on our conversation, right? The first product you came out with, Calm, was really, to help with calm. It may help with sleep, or it may help with anxiety, right? These aren't claimed, but it could potentially help. And then the second one you came out with, which was the one that I was talking about before, and I tried myself, was the Santa one, which is really about, being more social. And so it's interesting that, the same core active ingredient, which is AME1, on the one hand, it could be used to help you calm down and maybe even to help sleep. And on the other hand, when used within a certain context, it actually may help you to become more social and outgoing and extroverted. Right. So it's really interesting in that regard.
So this, like, first of all, obviously when with Santa, it's being formulated with different things that will help aim the Amanita and the Muscimol to one place, and we can formulate with others to bring it to other places. But even just with the Amanita, what you just said, like if you think of alcohol, which is another GABA A receptor agonist, when you drink one glass of red wine, you're like your body and your mind, and you're ready for bed. It's very relaxing. When you go ahead and drink a full bottle, you're like, okay, like what are we doing now? What's going on? I'm feeling this buzz. And it's similar also with this is why Jeff found the common Coke, right? Like we had our 2 ml, and Jeff and I have been doing this for a few years now and consuming quite a lot of Amanita during this process. So 2 became 3, became 4, became 5. And I think it was one conference that we were at, and we were like each doing like 8 ml or 10 ml. And we were feeling, and we were like, wow, this is, different ways of playing with it. It's like a chef, you have an ingredient and you start playing. How does it work when I add this, when I add that? What's the flavor? Like, yeah.
Well, after that, Paul, I did dry January, and when I would go and meet people for a drink, I took a bottle of Calm with me, and I'd order a Coke, and I'd put in 4 to 6 mil of Calm with it, and surprised myself after 3 of them. I slurred and I laughed because I'm like, this is hilarious. I don't
call Uber
like,
home.
Yeah, but no, it was an interesting feeling to sort of get to that point socially with your friends who are just drinking beer or a mixed drink, and you experienced a very similar. It's not the same, but it's similar, right? So you sort of get that heightened feeling through the process, and that was fun. And again, it's like anecdotal. We're not making any claims to this. We're just saying, like, when we've used it and when it's been in that form, those were the feelings that we had. But yeah, it's exciting. I think the main thing that we can say is, like, still alive, bringing more product, doing our best to educate the consumers, and also be transparent and show the regulatory that we're doing everything properly, because we think it's just too special to let it not be available for people to use, and there's a right way to do it, and we're trying to ensure that as pioneers of this, that we forge a path where other people can do it properly as well, and everyone benefits from it.
So what I'd love to talk about next is sourcing and stewardship. Like a lot of the conversation and the sort of main psychedelic research things are, I'll give an example. Compass Pathways, right, has created a synthetic psilocybin, and so a lot of people are like, well, do you have any sort of relationship with Mazatec, who have been working with psilocybin for thousands of years? That's one example. There is another company, Ambio Life Sciences, that's working with ibogaine, right? And so they're importing iboga from Gabon under something called the Nagoya Protocol, which allows for a more reciprocal relationship with where iboga comes from. Amanita is a little bit different because although it does come from Siberia, let's say traditionally or historically, it's widely used and widely grown and sort of is natural in many different places. So stewardship would be more so like, how are you then relating to or in conversation with maybe some of the traditional folks who have been, stewarding this for thousands of years. The sourcing question is a little bit more clear, right? Like, is this wild? Is this cultivated? I just be curious, what's the supply chain generally look like, just to ensure that this comes out in a way that is as you want it to be? Are there other alkaloids in Amanita outside of just the sort of extract that you think could be useful or beneficial? I'll just sort of throw that and address whatever you want to address, or talk through whatever you feel like would be fun to talk through.
Sure. So Amanita muscaria is being used for, like, it's been used. We spoke about the way it's been used, but it is used until today in Eastern and Northern Europe. These are communities that the Amanita muscaria is part of their culture. You can also see this in the Far East as well. So obviously there's more, at least there used to be a lot more practice, experience, and understanding of this mushroom and the way to consume it and what it does and how to do that. So I think this is the reason why we started our supply chain journey back in 2019 there. That was north and east of Europe, where we started bringing Amanita muscaria. You start with, you dive. I mean, this was kind of my main part of my job at the first part of our company life, was like, we want to have Amanita and start playing with it and bring people that know how they're doing and what they're doing. So it's diving in. I don't know if you ever had the chance to become a serious geek of something that not many people know what it is. So I think, like, from my experience, the best place to go is Facebook groups and use Google Translate to really dive into the language of the place with you. And that's what I did, and found super interesting and knowledgeable people and great source for Amanita. So we start with a supplier, but he has 10 kilos, he has 20 kilos, and you keep moving, and now you need like 100 kilos and 20 kilos. And how do you go do that? You fly there, you meet the people, you understand where they bring it. And, and eventually with the years, we got to a point where we have supply of like tons of dried Amanita from there. But I think that 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, started a journey to bring everything, all the sourcing from within the US. There's so much Amanita growing in the western northern part. If it's Washington, if it's there's so many countries around that area that has Amanita. I was there last summer in Washington, next to Seattle in the peninsula. So many mushrooms everywhere you look, and so many talented foragers that has been doing it for so long. And it was like, that's it. Let's do everything US based, and developing our foraging community and connections, and creating drying facilities and standards of how to forage here and the licenses to do so. And the idea is to have all of our raw material sourcing from within the US to support local economies. At the end of the day, Amanita muscaria is a non-timber forest product. It grows in the forest, but it doesn't involve the timber, the trees, and that's very rare and special. That means that when we go to low economies surrounding those forests and suggest to them and say, guys, we will buy all the Amanita muscaria that you bring to us, if it's Amanita, if it's foraged responsibly and sustainably, and we have our standards, and they need to agree and to sign and everything, we buy that, and we buy a lot, and we buy everything that we bring, and we buy it for good money.
And it's
So
wild. Then am I hearing that?
Oh, it's
Wow.
only wild. Amanita muscaria
Wow.
has a symbiotic relationship with the roots of trees, of pine trees, needle tree, all sort of
Birch tree. Yeah.
birch trees. Yeah, and this relationship takes many years to form with a grown tree. So if I want to cultivate Amanita muscaria, I will need to plant trees, wait 20, 30 years, put the spores of the Amanita. Hopefully, 8 years after, we'll have one or two Amanita. This is not, everything is what is grown. It's forged by nature, the way we say it on our label. Absolutely. And the areas and the earth where we take it also cannot be contaminated, cannot be next to areas that were contaminated. There's a lot of protocols and SOPs in that. But what I'm saying is, when you go to a low economy community, and you suggest, to provide them with this supplemental income, bring me the mushrooms, I will buy it. So once it happens, once, twice, three times, it becomes their major revenue, like income revenue, and for them to keep on getting it, they need to nurture the forest. They need the forest, so they'll protect the forest, they'll nurture the forest. And there's a cycle here when you buy a non-timber forest product, where the money that you use to buy it, the people that wants this income to continue on coming, they will need to protect the forest, and they will need to make sure that the forest brings them more and more Amanita muscaria every year. The more it brings them, the more money they get. So that's a beautiful cycle, and supporting the local economies while doing it, and bringing everything from within the US or Canada or just the northern part of the America has been the mission for the past year and a half, and I think we're in a very good place, and I think going forward it will be our only source.
Anything to add to that, Jeff? That's fascinating. I'm learning a lot of new things right now.
Yeah, no, I think as David said, we started in Europe because that was sort of the nucleus of it. And then as the company has grown and working with our consultants on Santa and sort of recognizing that we only sell in the United States and there's an opportunity for us to harvest the mushrooms in the United States and work with communities there. And as David pointed out, a big thing for us was that the non-timber forestry product and recognizing a way for people to earn an income without harming the forest, and in fact where you can give back to it, as David said. So I think it's as the company has evolved, our focus has grown with us in wanting to do good in the communities that we're selling the product as well, right? So just trying to keep it all closer to home.
And I'm just curious to hear your take on this. Are you worried at all about sustainability? Let's because my anticipation is that Amanita will continue to become more and more popular and commonplace, and I feel that way for a lot of these alkaloids and sort of holistic medicines. So let's say demand 10x's in the next 10 years. Do you have concerns about the sustainability of being able to still cultivate that much Amanita, or does it regrow quite quickly in the forests that are well taken care of?
Yeah, I think sustainability was a main, and I wouldn't say concern, but a main thing that we discussed at the beginning and until today, or the life of this company, each and every meeting, and making sure with consultants, with people around us, like I said at the beginning, our main thing is to do good here. And that goes both ways, to humankind and to nature. It's one. So it's definitely something that we put in like I said before, in the SOPs and the way to forage them. There's a few techniques, there's ways, whether it's, to leave the older ones to decompose naturally, and we don't buy the old ones, we just take the young ones, or whether when you take it, you tap it so that the spores fall on ground, and that every year that you come to the same area, to the same tree, you're going to find more and more mushrooms. And at the end of the day, it grows like mushrooms. Amanita muscaria grows every year in so many places around the world, and the places where we forage them and we go the year after, you just see more mushrooms. So as long as you do it right and with responsible and according to SOPs that were written with sustainability in mind, um, that's definitely going to come every year.
And this is why we love mushrooms. Go ahead, Jeff.
100%. Yeah, I was just going to jump in with a story, sort of when we started, because we're a public company and we were the first sort of to work with Amanita. There's a community of, as David said, of harvesters, of people who use this mushroom, who create their own tinctures and do their own balms, and there was some fear in the market that, oh, Psyched Wellness is going to come in and take all the Amanita and change it for everyone. I'm proud to say that 2, 3 years into the process, one of the individuals who had reached out to us and had a lot of fear initially, called to say, "Hey, I just wanted to say thank you, you guys. You did what you said you were going to do. You've done it responsibly. You've brought it forward using science, and your product isn't one for me. I like to make my own, but you haven't disrupted the supply chain. You haven't done anything nefarious." And he was just simply saying, thank you, because you're adding legitimacy to a community that by and large had been, people just boiling their own mushrooms and making tinctures and living sort of on the outskirts of this, and we were just sort of bringing it a little more mainstream. So yeah, I think we're proud of the way that we've built the company, and I think the way we continue to move forward is keeping all of those things in mind, as David said, the folklore, the smaller communities, and then also bringing it forward where people have access to something that they can trust.
So let's sort of wrap up our conversation today with just a little bit of forward looking, and you can disclose as much or as little as you wish. But I always love to ask, especially folks who are running companies that are really doing innovative things. You have 2 products out now. You have Calm, which is the tincture, and the Santa, which is the AME1, the Amanita with a few other alkaloids, and that's the more social drink. That's the one I was talking about before. What else are you excited to potentially develop or bring out to the world, or what wakes you up and gives you motivation and energy and inspiration with Psyched Wellness as you look to the next 6 months to a year with this company?
David, I'll just start and then I'll pass it to you on the new product innovation. But
Yeah.
on Santa, we would love to say more and show more on it right now, Paul. But really, we brought in this team. They were the founders of Harmless Harvest Coconut Water. They've done a fantastic job building this for us. And they are very excited about the launch of this product, and we really don't want to clip them at the knees and start showing it and talking about it too much before they have a chance to really introduce it to the market in the fashion that they feel is the appropriate way for the launch of this. So we're super excited about it. We hope to be in a position where we are, sharing links and showing pictures and talking more about it. But really, it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years in the making, and we would hate to take the wind out of their sail at this stage. So, bear with us, but we're excited about it. And, David can talk a little more about some of the product that we have in the pipe on sort of the legacy side that we call it with Calm and sort of where we are on that side.
Right. Yeah. Your question, Paul, was what wakes us up at night and gets us excited about so many things. But in the pipeline are things that got us excited. So we started doing them. And we've been developing for a while now and very excited to bring it to market soon, not putting dates and pressure behind it, but we are at the finish line with 2 more products, one being gummies. With gummies, we had a lot of challenge, by the way, just like behind the scenes, but with gummies, because we use a lot of heat to create gummies in the process, and Moscow is heat sensitive. So finding a way to preserve the potency of the Moscow while having a gummy that is not liquidy but has the flavor, is consistent, and like so many variations that was actually a long process and challenge to create these gummies, and we're in a very good place. We like the way it looks, it tastes. It's an interesting gummy, and it has consistent potency of Moscow. And the other one, we call it Comer. Comer is the next version of Cam. It's a 2x potency, Moscow potency version of Comer. It comes from a lot of demand from the market, from our subscribers, from our recurring customers. They are looking for a higher dosage. They've been using COM for a long time, and we are listening, and we are trying to bring whatever our clients want. So that was a returning request. So very excited to do that as well now.
So, folks, if you do want to explore calm or calmer, which I love that you came out with something that's even more potent, I'm going to have to give that a go. Psychedwellness.com is the website. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. And then just sign up for their email list. Get a sense of what else is coming out. Like I said, I did try this Santa, which they will be rolling out at some point, and it's fantastic. So I'm stoked for when that comes out, and you all will hear about that through email, through us. But generally, I think there's just so much, as we've talked about in the podcast today, so much potential and opportunity with Amanita that is underexplored. So I'm excited to continue to observe and kind of stay up to date about what you all are up to. David, Jeff, it's great to have you both on the show. Psychedwellness.com. Any place else you'd love to point folks to check out, or
No, check us on our website. You're going to get your updates there. You'll have access to our shop, and you'll be able to go through and see press releases, and if there's anything that you want to look at study wise, you can reach out to us directly. Our contact information's on the website. But Paul, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to staying in touch with updates as we progress with our product launches.
Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The psychedelic space is evolving every day, and we have a ton of amazing content that's coming out, and subscribing is the best way to keep up to date with all of that great content.